Hi everyone, and welcome back to Writing Guy. Fountain pen enthusiasts can always seem to find out ways to spend more time using their favorite writing instruments, yet to the newer folks, some might find it difficult to really put their thoughts into a drawing, or in my case, writing. So in this video, I'll be providing you with the step-by-step guides and examples so that anyone can really see the progressions of how your writing skill should evolve, and especially learning how to cope with the fear of judgment and the fear of not knowing what the hell you're doing, because believe me, I don't know what I'm doing here either. Before we begin, some of you might ask, who is this man to declare himself knowledgeable enough to teach us how to write? Well, I have a background of English linguistics, as well as more than 10 years in the educational sector, so I do know a thing or two. So if you would like to vet my writing, feel free to head over to my other sites, such as the Patreon or Instagram, to see for yourself if my writing is good enough for your needs and fits your style. So first things first, you need to set really clear goals. This is the thing that you must consider for any learning endeavors. It is important to recognize what you want to do this for, and without a clear goal, you can't really make any progress towards anything, and all you're going to do from that point onward is just wasting time and creating content for Instagram. As per writing, there are many things you can do with good writing skills. First and foremost, it would be greatly beneficial to your thinking process, as knowing how to think in an effective manner that makes sense to your reader helps a lot in improving your own personal thinking process, as well as being able to convey your ideas to the readers more effectively. Another benefit to learning how to write well is that it would surely help you navigating your thinking process a lot better, and in terms of finding the right words to say to the right people at the right time. This is such an overlooked skill that it takes a few decades of living for me to recognize how important it is. Trying to figure out what you're trying to do with writing and start breaking that goal into smaller, more manageable bits that you can start working on every day are some of the first steps I would recommend you to do before you do any kind of writing practice. Now, for the second step is to recognize that writing is not a standalone skill, and you have to practice it along with reading. Writing is the act of using the writing system of a language to interpret your thoughts into a surface or maybe a writing app. So first, you would really have to know your way through the language, and the best way for anyone to really increase their level is to do one of two things, or better yet, both. Read a lot and listen a lot more. There are plenty of good writing on social medias, and there will always be more of them being produced every day. If you are not used to reading long forms just yet, start with video essays and podcasts, and actively listen to every single sentence. Yes, I mean, really spend your time and effort to pick up on the word choices of the people in the videos, the quirks in their sentences, and the way they phrase their ideas and thinking process. However, there are also drawbacks to these two processes, and personally, the best methods of consuming written words for myself is to read something that was written by hand. Now, here's why. Printed books in both physical and digital formats pose too much of a volume for any normal human beings to consume at one go, and especially for the younger generations with shortened attention span, this is becoming harder and harder for people to spend a straight 1 to 2 hours a day of just reading. If you decided to type out what you have read or listened to, that would certainly be better than just sit there and listen passively, as you are making your brain work for every word you take in. Yet, it can still be a bit of a challenge for a lot of us to try and retain any amount of meaningful and usable language. If you decide to go the extra miles to write what you have read or listened to down on a piece of paper, personally, that would be the best practice, and that has been working for me thus far, while being the most time consuming for most people. However, it does more than a few things for you. Whatever words you are trying to write down, there would be a split second that you unavoidably read them in your head. That's something you can't move away from. And for any writers, grammar and vocabulary are the most overlooked skill that gets the most amount of first drafts rejected by their own audience, not to mention editors and publishers. The more you gather for your arsenal of language, the more specific and flowery you can be for your own work. When there is a writing style that particularly resonates with you, whether it is a speaker or an author, you would really imitate their voice by similarly write down what they're doing. To some, this might be plagiarism. If you are a blank page without any starting point, having something to begin with is still a lot better than still staying at that blank page. So don't feel pressured to have your own writing style right away, because nobody got their own at the start. And start collecting sentences and quotes from your favorite authors and write them down. Build up your stash of words, and we can continue from there. The next thing is to practice regularly. The previously mentioned activities are only one of the forms of practices that you can do to get yourself acquainted with the act of writing. There are a lot of things you can do as well, and please do spend some time to experiment and see what kind of practice do you like to do on a day-to-day basis. Some people start off with stream of consciousness writing, like free writing in the first thing in the morning, right after they wake up. Or some might do sorts of journaling at the end of the night when they are ready to wind down before bedtime. Now, depends on the type of writing that you want to master. There are a few ways you can do to get yourself comfortable with them. First one is nonfiction. If you're looking to write a lot of nonfiction, especially essays and articles, please consider practicing outlining your writing before you start picking up the pen. There is great benefit to outlining things so that you can see the flow of your essay before you even start. And it's crucial that you recognize your own thinking pattern to see if it's making sense to the average reader. And you're going to write so that anyone can read and understand what's going on. So not just you writing for yourself. If you are looking to write fictional work, please spend as much time per day as you can to absorb the basics of creative writing. There are plenty of resources out there in regards to world building techniques or story progressions that literature class may not be able to teach you all of them. Start by learning by reading others' work and pick out the details and analyze what you like best about their work, then practice by applying them to your own. In regards to test-based writing, such as the IELTS, Test 1 and 2, these are more familiar with people from outside of the UK and US, because a lot of international students, they have to do language skill assessment, or something that is more on the research methods kind of writing, please start by learning the correct format of the writing and how you would be scored and graded, and practice your writing based on those criteria. All of those require you to read a lot, and from what you can start, pick up the generally used vocabulary for those type of writing, and that would certainly help with building the formal writing voice that you usually see in research paper and academic test-based work. The next thing that I would like you to go for is to learn the basics again. There is not enough emphasis on practicing the basic skills in writing. A lot of us like to rush things and try to fumble our ways through flowery proses and sorts of imitating our favorite authors instead of trying to build our skills from the ground up. Start by studying the basic skills from grammar and vocabulary, as well as learning how to effectively use literary devices while avoiding cliches. Of course, you have to lure the readers in and keep them entertained through gorgeous proses and word choices. But when your simplest sentences gets clunky, people definitely take notice right away. It's like enjoying a fine dining dish and somehow a speck of dust got through the kitchen on your plate. The whole course would still be enjoyable, but nonetheless, that one speck of dust would be in your mind, haunting you for the rest of the days. Practicing the basics makes it so that there would be the least amount of bumps and potholes in your writing, and which would certainly help in terms of smoothing out the reading experiences of your readers. It would sound childish and too simplistic, but I would often go back to my grammar textbooks as well as college linguistics materials to actually freshen up what I've learned, and somehow along the way I'll pick up words I haven't been using in a while, which would certainly come in handy when I least expect them to. If you guys would like to have a more specific and lesson by lesson kind of thing to start studying by yourself, I'll be making a write along course that would be available on Patreon. The link is in the bio, and in a way that will support the making of these videos as well in the future. The next thing that you should be doing is to seek feedback. You'll only progress as far as the combination of books you've read and as much as the number of people who have read your work. This line came ringing in my head in the middle of the night, and it has stuck with me ever since. The combination of the materials and books you have read could really only take you so far, but when it comes to further your writing skills, the people who are spending their time reading your work matter as well. While you write, you would be the first one to ever read your drafts, but there are more than 8.1 billion people around the world, and certainly when you publish that piece of writing onto the vast world of the internet or in physical prints, some of those people might come across it, and of course some of them might have opinions. While it is important to get feedback from a large sample size, it is also important to filter out the ones that do not align with your goals, to focus on the constructive criticism that help you further your writing skill. If you have the chance, send your work to those whose writing you think is great, and most of the time, don't be disappointed that you won't get an email back in return. But once you do, there might be some interesting insights that you would never get in real life, and as a lot of people are afraid to directly commenting on someone else's work. Good feedback can help you notice the things you unconsciously do in your writing or words that you overuse so that you can adjust and refresh your future projects. The next thing is to revise and edit. When I first started out, I hadn't got the chance to develop writer's habit, and sometimes my laziness got the better of me, and there was a long period of time when I pressed the word post too soon for my own good. The writing came out was so cringe that a few hours later I deleted the blog post that I wish I had revised a bit better before posting. Writing and editing are two really different processes that require you to do really contrasting activities. Writing would demand you to squeeze out every last ounce of your gray matter to put down as many words as possible, while the latter, more often than not, demand you to cut out as much as you possibly can and leave the rest waiting on the next session of chopping. Editing, in a way, would force you to really sit down and start thinking about what you have written, and most of the time, your first drafts are going to suck a lot. Having the first draft to start off with is so crucial in terms of guiding you on what to fix and what to cut completely. And don't feel surprised when your first and final drafts are something completely different from one another and from what you had in mind in the first place. One other thing to note is that your work might become the best-selling books on the shelves, but one thing for certain is that your book would never become the best in the world. A writer's job is to put sentences together using words that they know. So in reality, language is an asset that's available to every single person in this world, and there's no way you can be sure you are the best at it, since the way people perceive good writing is subjective and comes down to individuals' past reading experience and personal taste as well. It is really difficult to edit and refine your work to become the best in the world in a sense, but there is some point that it will become good enough for the average reader's consumption. You can spend a few minutes writing and a whole lot more hours editing a piece of work, and it is up to you to judge if that piece of work is good enough to be left alone or to be published to the world. The more time you spend over editing, the more likely you are subjecting yourself to self-doubt. So a good base to start off from is dividing your writing and editing time in 1-to-2 ratio and adjust it from there. Another point to note is to take your time away from your own writing. As the great Tony Robbins said himself, too much analysis leads to paralysis. Next is to invest. Now, the constant cycle of writing and reading would inevitably become dull after a short while, and there's nothing less difficult to spice it up by doing some shopping therapy. Since A Writing Guy has always been a fountain pen related channel, buying a new pen or a new bottle of ink is the quickest way to freshen up your writing hobby, and there's nothing wrong in splurging a bit more for the best writing experience. Now, if you're not into pens at all, perhaps a new mechanical keyboard can provide that bit of tactile feeling while you're writing with your phone or laptop to make it a bit more fun in a way. All those quick fixes aside, the things you should really be investing into if you're serious with writing are new books and writing courses. When you spend money on something, it means you care about it. You are showing your interest enough to invest in it. And when you invest in something, you naturally want to get your money's worth. You're motivated to use it fully, so you don't feel like you've wasted your own money. It's like saying, this is important to me, so I want to make the most of it. Plus, when you buy something, you feel responsible for it. You want to take care of it and use it well. And this mindset helps you appreciate what you have and avoid collecting the stuff without really enjoying it. If you decide to spend on a book, you would surely either like the author enough to spend your hard-earned money to support them, or you are intrigued enough by the title and the first few glances through the books at the bookstores that you managed to take it home, and that's an indication that the author did something right. Reading leisurely aside, if you decide to spend your time sitting down and analyze the book more critically, you would find that some authors, while knowing the craft well enough, they still do need their editors to do a lot of the heavy lifting to completely flush out the whole piece of work, as well as notice their own quirks and habits while writing. Then you can decide if it's something that you want to apply into your own work or not. Now, on the topic of writing courses, taking a few basic ones when you first start out might provide you the most gains, as these courses tend to provide the most basic informations for beginners. And despite most of the available contents are provided on YouTube with plenty of full of creators making videos on them, but with paid courses, they're organized in a more methodological manner that it will be easier to consume for the average enthusiast. If you are looking into more advanced courses, I would say go for those that are designed by literature faculties from credible universities and colleges that might be able to provide you with more insightful techniques and directions to experiment more with your own work. For the average beginners, you can get a lot of progress made with just practice and reading alone. But to further your skill and seriously turn writing into a professional skill, more academic learning approach would be beneficial to almost everybody. Decide for yourself if you would like to keep writing as a hobby, or if you would like to develop it into something further, then start investing accordingly. And finally, we have a few more. That would be experiment. As mentioned previously, reading and writing the same type of content would get boring once in a while, and there will definitely be time that you would have to change it up a bit. Trying out a different genre, or even better yet, challenge yourself to writing with a completely foreign set of rules might prove to be beneficial to your own progress. And along the way, you might be able to pick up some new skills that can be reapplied to your preferred type of writing. Trying out different things with your writing can be really helpful. It's like trying out new recipes in the kitchen. You might discover flavors you've never knew you liked. When you experiment with writing, you're not just practicing, you're also getting more creative. It's like stretching your imagination muscles. Each time you try something new, whether it's writing a story, a poem, or even just jotting down your thoughts, you're adding new tools to your writing toolbox. It's fun and helps you become a better writer. Plus, experimenting with your writing helps you learn more about yourself. It's like going on an adventure to find out that you're good at something and other things you need to work on. Some things might not turn out the way you expected, but that's okay. It's all part of the learning process. Each time you try something new, whether it's a success or a flop, you're growing as a writer. It's like discovering more about yourself and becoming more confident in sharing your ideas with others. The next thing is to keep yourself inspired. This is probably the hardest thing to do throughout this whole video, and I think it is even harder in this day and age when there are so many sources of distractions and unforeseeable circumstances. It would eventually get in your way of writing, and there's nothing you can do about it to lose that hit of motivation every day. There are many things you can do to really spark that fire once again, but the gist of it is that you could really expose yourself to life as much as possible. Now, what do you expose yourself to? It could be anything: nature, in arts in different forms, to different cultures, to people, and basically to life in general. Whether it's taking a stroll in nature, checking out a new place, or simply watching people go by, these everyday moments can spark fresh ideas and keep your creativity alive. You can also find inspiration in art and culture. Visiting museums, going to concerts, or watching movies can expose you to different perspectives and style, inspiring you to try new things in your own work. And building connections with people is another great way to stay inspired. Talking with others, sharing stories, and working together can bring new insights and ideas that you might not have thought of on your own. In short, keeping yourself inspired is about staying curious and open to the world around you. By seeking out new experiences and connecting with others, you'll keep your creativity buzzing and your work fresh and exciting. The last thing to note is to persevere. I like this word so much that on a whim, I wrote it on my wrist and had it tattooed on a hot and humid Saturday. But that's a different story for another day. The point being, there can never be any progress unless you pull yourself together and get down and dirty for an indefinite amount of time. For any kind of skill acquisition, you can always use more perseverance to get you through that bumpy road called progress. And it is hard to really know when you should stop trying, but most of the time, the moment you stop is a bit too early and too soon to reach the finish line. Perseverance is the key when it comes to honing your writing skills. Like any craft, writing requires patience, practice, and dedication. It's not always easy, and there may be times when you feel frustrated and discouraged, but it's important to keep going even when the going gets tough. Every word you write, every sentence you revise brings you one step closer to becoming the writer you aspire to be. It is also essential to remember that writing is a journey, it's not a destination. You'll always be a work in progress, and that's okay. Embracing the progress of growth and learning is crucial to your own development as a writer and as a person as well. Instead of striving for perfection, focus on progress. Celebrate the small victories along the way, whether it's mastering a new writing techniques or completing a writing challenge or receiving positive feedback from readers. Understand that it's never going to end, allows you to approach it with humility and curiosity. It gives you the freedom to experiment, to make mistakes, and each setback is an opportunity to learn and to grow. In the end, the most fulfilling part of writing is not reaching a destination, but experiencing life itself. The highs and the lows, the breakthroughs and the setbacks, the moments of inspirations and the hours of hard work. So keep writing, keep learning, and above all, your journey as a writer is unique and ever evolving, and it's the journey itself that makes the destination worth striving for. Thank you guys for watching, and happy writing.